I didn't hear the door slam so much as feel it, the way sound dulls when snow eats the world. 1 second I was a bride, the next I was a rumor the storm was already forgetting. "Stay here," he'd said. "I need air." He took the keys. He took the last warm breath with him. He didn't take me. The blizzard pinned our rented cabin to the mountainside like a dead moth, roof groaning, windows whitening, wind howling its old, hungry hymn. I stood in the lace I'd chosen for vows that never made it past our lips and watched the flakes stack against the glass. Minutes stretched until they felt like years. When I finally tried the door, the handle was ice. The car tracks were vanishing, eaten by white. My new husband was just gone. Some brides cry. I counted 10, then 40, then 100 heartbeats that didn't bring him back. When the generator coughed itself to sleep and the lights sighed out, I understood what this was. Abandoned. I put on his jacket, the one that still smelled like cedar and a promise he didn't keep, grabbed the thin wool blanket from the couch, and stepped into the storm. The cold hit like a confession. My breath turned to smoke. The snow was already shin-deep, carving drifts into wolf back shapes. I pressed the blanket to my chest and walked because standing still felt like agreeing to die. "Hello?" I called, the way you call into a dream you'd like to change. The pines didn't answer. Something else did, a far-off crack, not wood. Metal. Then silence, heavy as regret. I should have gone back. I should have stacked furniture against the door and waited for a morning that might never come. Instead, I followed the narrow thread of road that curved past my cabin and up toward the ridge where, in clearer seasons, distant neighbors kept their distance. One, people said, lived all the way at the top, where the mountains looked straight into God's eyes. No one knew his name. They just said, "Don't bother him." As if trouble were a knock he didn't answer, but ate. My dress snagged on frozen brush, lace tore with little, polite apologies. The ring on my finger felt too tight and too loose all at once. Every few steps, the wind shifted, and the snow came from a new direction, clever, relentless, tasting my resolve the way a predator tastes the air. When I slipped, my hands went into powder so cold it burned. I laughed, an ugly, dry sound, because what else do you do when the universe throws rice and it's all knives? That's when I saw the print. It wasn't tire or boot. It was a paw, but wrong, too wide for any dog, too deep for something light. Fresh, already filling with snow, pointing up the road I was following. One print, then another, then, my heart turned over, even bigger ones beside it, as if two shadows were walking in step. I should have turned back. I kept going. The road twisted into a throat of trees and then opened, suddenly, onto a clearing the storm couldn't quite swallow. The cabin here was nothing like ours. Ours had fairy lights and staged coziness, a place built for photos people forget they took. This house was old timber and stone, the kind of serious that survives winters and wars. A porch wrapped it like a long arm. Dark windows watched the storm. Smoke, thin but stubborn, wrote a line into the sky. Something moved along the tree line. A shape, low and black, slid out of the snow like it had been born from it. A wolf, I thought first, but bigger, shoulders rolling under a coat that drank the light. It paused, head lifting, nostrils flaring. Its eyes were not yellow. They were ember deep, not a color so much as a heat. They found me the way night finds a candle, curious. Deciding. My legs forgot how to be legs. The animal took 2 careful steps toward me, paws silent in the drift, breath pluming silver. Then a door creaked, and a voice, low, unhurried, unafraid, cut across the space between porch and snow. Enough. The wolf stopped. It didn't crouch. It didn't snarl. It simply obeyed, turned its head toward the porch as if acknowledging a truth. And that's when I looked up and saw him. He filled the doorway like doorways had been designed to frame him. Tall, broad in a way that wasn't vanity but architecture. Dark hair, longer than fashion, pushed back by a hand that knew the habit. The porch light threw a thin circle around him, turning his eyes into metal under snow. He wasn't bundled. A sweater, sleeves shoved to his forearms, steam ghosting off skin that shouldn't have been warm in this cold. He didn't seem surprised to find a ruined bride in his storm. "Inside," he said, and I almost laughed again because it sounded like a question no one had ever answered with no. My throat folded on the word. My husband, he left. I thought. I was told neighbors lived up here and, I'm the neighbor, he said. You're freezing. He stepped aside, a king making space. Inside, some part of me flinched from orders, fresh from a man who had given them like gifts he never intended me to open. But something older in me recognized the tone. Not the bark of ownership. The calm of someone who had walked people through worse nights than this. The wolf padded to the porch edge and sat, a statue with breath. As I passed, it leaned just enough that its fur brushed my torn lace. Heat slid through the fabric into my skin. The contact was a question. I didn't answer it. I climbed 3 steps like they were a mountain and stepped into a room that made my bones remember what warmth felt like. Fire lay low and red in a stone hearth. The air smelled faintly of pine and iron and something darker I couldn't name. Shelves lined one wall, full of old books and new knives. A kettle murmured on the stove as if it had been waiting precisely for me in this minute. Blanket, the man said, guiding me wordlessly with a tilt of his chin to a chair that had the good manners to be near the flames. He took the thin wool I'd carried and replaced it with one heavy enough to matter, the kind of weight that calms the nervous system and silences shaking. Only then did he look at me the way people look, all the way. His eyes were strange. Not their color, something older than color. They felt like a question and an answer at the same time. What's your name? He asked. Lena, I said, and my voice came out small. Helena, but no one calls me that. No one who stays, I didn't add. Lena, he repeated, and the syllables sounded safer rolled in his mouth. I'm Rowan. The name fit him. Old wood. Rooted. He poured tea into a thick mug and crouched to put it in my hands himself, fingers brushing my knuckles just enough for me to feel the heat trapped in him. Sip slowly. Then tell me where he went. He said he needed air. The laugh came back, feather light and awful. He took the keys. Of course he did, Rowan said, and something subtle changed in the room, the way animals go quiet when a storm turns. He stood, not fast, but with a precision that told me he could be fast any second he needed to. How long? An hour? 2? Time had stopped wearing numbers. I followed the road until I saw your place. You passed his car? No, just prints. I glanced toward the door, toward the wolf. Pause. Big. He didn't look surprised. He went to a cabinet, took a towel, and wrapped it around my shoulders like a ritual. When his hands left, the warmth stayed. You have any reason to think he'll come back? He's the kind of man who leaves before breakfast, I said, hating how bitter sounded childish and how honesty felt like a bruise under my tongue. But not in a storm. Not like this. Rowan's gaze skated over my dress, the ring I hadn't taken off, the way I kept clenching the blanket at my collarbone as if someone might snatch it. He didn't look away from the ugly parts. I was grateful and I hated it. Then he didn't leave, Rowan said, and the certainty in it steadied me and scared me. He was taken. Taken? The word lodged like a chip of ice. By who? By what? He corrected, and the fire popped hard, punctuating the sentence. He nodded at my mug. Drink. I drank, because my hands were shaking and because when men like him use their voice that way, your bones cooperate before your brain gets a vote. The tea was bitter, clean. It ran warmth down into the hollow places. Tonight's wrong, he said, glancing toward the window where snow painted the panes into cloud. The storm's not just weather. You think a blizzard is, what? A plan? A net, he said. Clever hunters cast wide. I swallowed. Hunters of, who? Runaways. His mouth tipped, almost a smile, not humor. Kings. The word landed on the rug between us and refused to melt. I stared. Maybe I should have laughed. I didn't. Something about him made laughter seem like a tool you didn't bring to this kind of work. And brides? I asked, voice smaller than I wanted. Do they hunt brides who were left behind? Rowan's eyes moved to the window again. The wolf outside lifted its head, as if that simple shift of attention tugged a string between them. They hunt anything that weakens the pack, he said. Weak links. Loose ends. Hearts that aren't where they were supposed to be. I put the mug down before I spilled it. You keep saying they. Who are they? He looked back at me, and for the first time something fierce, old, and unarguable moved under his calm. People who think vows are cages, he said softly. And people who enforce that belief with teeth. The room, the storm, the night, all of it felt suddenly like a mouth I'd stepped into without noticing the teeth. I should go, I said, standing too fast, the blanket sliding. I shouldn't have bothered you. I'll go back, you won't make it, Rowan said, not unkindly. Not alone. I'm not. The protest died in my throat when the wind shifted and I heard it, not the howl. The hush that rides before it. Then, thin and real, a cry. A man's voice. Rowan was already moving. Heavy coat. Boots by the door. He tossed a second coat to me without asking whether I could carry its weight. Stay behind me, he said, and in that instant I realized he was not asking out of arrogance. He was measuring what the night might do and placing himself where it would hit first. We stepped onto the porch. The wolf rose, fluid as smoke turned muscle, and fell into place at Rowan's left. The blizzard shoved us both, then seemed to think better of it. Rowan took the steps like an oath and dropped into the drift without hesitation. I followed, because when a stranger walks into your storm like he built the path, you put your feet where his feet go. Rowan, I said, breath breaking white in front of my mouth. You never answered. What are you? Your neighbor, he said, and then, after a beat that tasted like a decision, and your only chance. The cry came again, closer this time, then cut off, as if snow had put its cold hand over a mouth. We rounded the corner of the house. The dark poured deeper between trees. The wolf stopped, hair lifting along its spine. Rowan lifted one palm and the animal stilled, and I saw it then, the prints I'd noticed. CED on the road continued here, fresh, circling the side yard where the wind couldn't scour them. Pause, yes, but something else pressed into the drifts too. Boot treads. 3 sets. Leading toward the shed. The padlock on the door hung open, the clasp mangled, as if frost had learned to bite metal. Rowan's hand came up again, low, a command the body understands. Stay. He stepped forward alone, opened the door, and the smell hit, cold iron, old wood, and the sweet copper note I once pretended was only in horror stories. He didn't flinch. Lena, he said, voice even. Whatever you see, breathe. I'm breathing, I lied. He tugged the light cord. Yellow pooled, reluctant and thin. In the corner, trussed in ropes that looked too clean to have been bought for anything but this, a man lay on his side, eyes swollen, mouth gagged. His tuxedo was torn like mine. His ring, my ring, glittered on his shaking hand. Evan, I whispered. My husband. My almost. My gone. His eyes found me, and in them was relief and a new, cheap thing. Shame. Rowan moved fast but precise, like a craftsman doing what his hands loved. He cut the gag, then the wrist rope, then the ankles. Evan tried to sit. His legs refused. Rowan caught him without ceremony. What? Who did this? I asked, because the question was a bandage, and I needed something to press to the bleeding reality. Evan shuddered. I went to the car. Someone, men, they asked about you. Said brides aren't meant to run. I told them you were inside. I lied. He coughed, a sound like old paper tearing. They didn't like liars. I felt the floor tilt, it was just my body swaying. The wolf stepped closer to Rowan's thigh, a dark pivot of focus, watching Evan with a gaze that weighed and measured and didn't find much. Rowan looked at me, not at Evan. They know your name, he said. That means they'll be back. For me? My voice broke. Why? Because someone marked you, he said simply. New brides are valuable to men who sell obedience for a living. Something tightened under my ribs that had nothing to do with cold. You're saying this is more than a storm and a runaway groom. I'm saying your wedding isn't the story you think it is. He glanced at the door, at the white beyond it. And now that you've stepped into mine, the ending can change. How? I whispered. By living through the night. He lifted Evan like he weighed half a memory and set him upright against the wall. Can you walk? Evan nodded, then shook his head, then tried to stand anyway and failed all 3 ways. His eyes kept flicking to the wolf and away, like a boy who wanted to pretend he wasn't afraid of the dark in front of the man who built the dark. Stay close, Rowan said to me. And if I say run, you run. The wind pressed its face to the door and exhaled. Somewhere beyond the trees, a long, low howl stitched itself to the night, answer and challenge in one sound. The wolf on our side didn't reply. It didn't need to. Its silence said enough. We're not alone. Rowan put a hand to the door frame, just briefly, like a man greeting a threshold he'd crossed 1,000 times. He looked back over his shoulder at me, through me, and the storm seemed to hush to hear what he might say. "Lena," he murmured, as if testing how my name fit in his mouth when danger stood in the doorway, "whatever he did to you tonight isn't the last word." The bond between my ribs, thin, new, not named yet, pulled tight as a thread in a needle's eye. The blizzard didn't stop, it just learned how to listen. Every gust carried whispers that didn't belong to wind, footsteps too steady, breaths too sharp. Rowan moved through it like he was born of it, the wolf gliding beside him, shadow made of muscle and silence. Behind us, Evan stumbled, each crunch of his boots too loud, too human. His breath came in ragged bursts, his fear smelled like iron and sweat even through the storm. "Keep your head down," Rowan murmured. "They see movement before they see faces." "Who?" I asked, my voice small in the snow. "The ones who collect what men lose," he said. "And tonight, they're hungry." I wanted to ask what that meant, but the wind changed, abrupt, deliberate. The wolf stopped dead, ears flat, and Rowan's hand shot up. A signal. Silence. Then I heard it. Not the storm, not the trees. A low, steady growl, answering ours. Shapes moved in the white, dark smears, low to the ground, circling. The air thickened. My pulse became its own storm. Rowan's voice was a whisper against my ear. "Lena, no matter what happens, don't scream." I nodded, even though my body already wanted to. From the white curtain, 3 wolves emerged, not like Rowan's companion. These were thinner, hungrier. Their eyes were glassy blue, unnatural. Cursed. Rowan stepped forward, putting himself between them and us. His wolf mirrored him, teeth bare, breath misting in steady rhythm. I could feel it, some current passing between them, wordless orders carried through blood and air. Evan whimpered behind me. "What are they?" "Scavengers," Rowan said. "Used to be men who forgot the difference between loyalty and greed." One of the feral wolves lunged. Rowan didn't flinch. His hand snapped up, catching its throat midair like gravity owed him obedience. The creature twisted, snarled, snapped at his wrist. The wolf beside him struck, faster than thought, its jaws closing on the attacker's neck. Snow exploded in a blur of black and red. "Stay back," Rowan shouted. But I couldn't. Evan had fallen again, too slow, too loud. The third wolf broke from circle, rushing for him. Instinct pulled me forward. I grabbed the broken shovel handle by the shed and swung as the beast leapt. Wood met flesh. The impact ran up my arm like lightning. The wolf hit the snow with a sound that didn't belong to animals. It was almost human. Rowan turned, saw the fallen shape twitching at my feet, and in that flash of light from the storm, I saw its face. Not fur. Not fully. Human eyes behind the beast's skin. A mark branded on the shoulder, a crescent over a chain. "Verdon's mark," Rowan said, voice hardening. "They found us." He knelt by the dying creature. It tried to speak, its mouth breaking shape between muzzle and man. "The bride is marked," it rasped. "The pack wants her back." Then it went still. Rowan's hand went to my arm. "Not rough. Grounding. You're bleeding." "I'm fine," I lied. The cut on my forearm burned in rhythm with my heartbeat. He looked at it, eyes narrowing. "It's not just blood. They tried to brand you with something." "What?" "The mark of claim." His jaw tightened. "You were sold before you ever married him." My stomach dropped. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying your wedding was a trade, not a promise. They wanted to deliver you to someone who'd pay for obedience." I stared at him, at the snow, at Evan trembling behind us. "And my husband?" Rowan's eyes flicked toward the man. He wasn't in on it at first. But he knew. The truth hit colder than the storm ever could. "He knew?" Evan's lips parted. I didn't, Lena, please, I thought it was just money. They said it was a dowry, a way to start over." Rowan stood, towering, voice iron-edged. "You sold her." Evan shook his head wildly. No, I didn't know what they'd do. I swear." The wind rose, carrying something else with it, a howl, deeper, commanding. The kind that makes every living thing remember what it means to kneel. Rowan's wolf lowered its head. Rowan himself didn't move, but I saw it, the faint shimmer along his skin, like heat in the cold. For a heartbeat, his eyes burned gold. He turned to me, voice suddenly softer. Lena, listen to me. My heart stuttered. What's happening? The storm isn't here for you. It's here for me. Before I could answer, the sky split, lightning without thunder, silver slicing through the dark. The blizzard roared, and through it, a figure emerged. A man cloaked in white furs, eyes the color of blood on ice. He smiled, and the temperature dropped like a knife through water. Well, the stranger said. The lost bride, and the crippled alpha who thought he could hide in the human woods. Rowan's hand tightened on his cane, not in weakness, but in readiness. Ronan, he said, and there was history in that name. Still chasing ghosts? Ronan's grin sharpened. Only the ones that smell like guilt. I looked between them, confusion clawing through my chest. You know him? Rowan didn't look at me. His gaze stayed locked on the intruder. He used to be my brother. Ronan's laugh was ice-shattering. Used to be. Until you stole what was mine. What did I steal? Rowan asked, calm as snow. The right to rule. The right to command. The moon's favor. Ronan's eyes flicked to me. And now, perhaps, her. He took a step forward. The ground cracked under his boots, frost spreading in spider veins. The wolves around him crouched lower, ready. Rowan shifted slightly, putting himself between us. You'll leave her out of this. Oh, I intend to, Ronan said, smiling wider. Once I've taken what's bound to her. Lightning flashed again, and the world moved too fast to track. The wolves lunged. Rowan's cane swept in an arc that cracked like thunder. The wolf beside him leapt, colliding mid-air with another beast. Snow turned to chaos. Rowan grabbed my wrist. Go, run. I'm not leaving you. You'll die if you don't. Something in his tone, fierce, desperate, rooted me, but before I could choose, the wolf that had followed us snapped at my arm, pushing me backward, not biting, hurting. It wanted me gone. Rowan turned once more, eyes glowing full gold now, teeth bared in something no human could mimic. Run, Lena. I did. The storm swallowed me whole. Behind me, the sound of wolves colliding shook the forest. And somewhere between those echoes, I thought I heard Rowan's voice, not words, just a growl shaped like a promise. A promise that this wasn't the end. That he'd find me. That I'd never freeze alone again. The storm ran out of breath by morning, but the silence it left behind was worse. No birds. No wind. Just the echo of my own heartbeat and the faint drag of snow collapsing in the distance. I didn't know how long I'd been running. My hands were raw, my lips split, and every breath burned. The forest had changed around me, the trees closer, older, their trunks marked with symbols half buried under frost. Rowan's voice still lived in my skull. Run. But how far could you run from a storm that followed the man you couldn't stop thinking about? I found shelter in a hollow beneath a fallen pine. My body shook, not just from cold, but from the kind of fear that doesn't belong to this world. The kind that whispers names you shouldn't know. Rowan, I whispered into the snow. Only the wind answered, and then, very faintly, a howl. Not his wolf. Something older. Before I could move, the ground beneath me trembled. The ice cracked in a spiderweb pattern, and a low hum rose from the forest floor. I scrambled out from under the tree just as the earth gave way, revealing a pit beneath the snow, deep and round, like an OLD well. Inside, a faint blue light pulsed. It wasn't fire. It wasn't moonlight. It was something alive. I leaned closer, too close, and the whisper came. Lena. My name, spoken in a voice that didn't belong to Rowan but carried his warmth. I froze. Who's there? The light flared. For a heartbeat, I saw a reflection in the ice, a woman's face. Pale, beautiful, wrong. Her eyes were mirrors, and in them, I saw myself kneeling in the snow. You carry his mark, she said. The bond he swore never to make again. Who are you? Her smile was thin as a knife. The one who froze his heart. Then the vision cracked, splintering into 1,000 shards of ice. A rush of air hit me, so cold it burned, and I stumbled back into the snow. The wind changed again, no longer empty. I heard footsteps crunching, steady, certain. I turned, and there he was. Rowan. Alive. Barely. He limped toward me, blood crusted along his collarbone, his coat torn and soaked through. His wolf wasn't with him. He was alone. When our eyes met, something in my chest gave way. I ran to him, and he caught me mid-fall, the warmth of his arms feeling like the first real thing in hours. You found me, I breathed. I told you I would. His voice was rough, scraped raw by battle and cold. I pulled back to look at him, searching his face. Where's your brother? Gone, he said, too quickly. For now. For now? His jaw tightened. He won't stop until he has what he wants. I glanced back toward the glowing pit. That woman, her face, it spoke to me. Rowan's expression changed. The color drained from his already pale skin. You saw her? Yes. He closed his eyes. Then it's worse than I thought. Who was she? He hesitated, then said quietly, my wife. The words hit harder than the cold. I stepped back, shaking my head. Your wife? But you said, she's dead, he cut in. At least, she was. But her curse wasn't. I swallowed hard. That's the woman who froze your heart, isn't it? His eyes opened, the gold in them flickering like dying fire. She cursed me to feel nothing until I found someone who could undo it. But every time I tried, the curse took them instead. Turned them to ice. That's why I stayed away from love. From everyone. And now? I whispered. He looked at me then, not the way men look at women, but the way souls look at something they've been waiting lifetimes to find. Now I'm breaking it. Before I could speak, the wind screamed again, this time from inside the pit. The blue light erupted, shooting skyward like a pillar. Rowan grabbed my arm, dragging me back just as something climbed out of the ice. It wasn't human. Not anymore. Frost crawled along her body like armor, and her hair moved as if caught in water. The same face I'd seen in the refill. Action, but now it was alive, hungry. Rowan, she said, her voice a song made of broken glass. You brought her here. He stepped in front of me, every line of his body going rigid. Stay away, Saris. You loved me once. I buried you once, he said. That's enough. Her laugh was soft and cruel. You can't bury what you promised to keep. The snow around us froze solid. Trees groaned under the weight of sudden ice. My breath came out in crystal plumes that didn't fade. Saris moved closer. Her eyes locked on me. And this is the girl who warms your dead heart. She'll freeze faster than the others. Rowan's hand went to my shoulder. Don't listen to her. Why not? She asked sweetly. Because you didn't tell her the truth? I looked up at him, my pulse pounding. What truth? He said nothing. Saris smiled wider. That you can only save one of us. The ground cracked again, the pit widening. Wind tore at my hair, ice clawing at my ankles. Rowan pulled me back, but the cold found me, seeping into my skin, threading through my veins like poison. Lena, he shouted. I couldn't feel my legs. My vision blurred, the world shrinking to sound and heartbeat. Saris reached out, her frozen fingers brushing the air between us. Let her go, Rowan roared. Take me instead. The storm answered his cry. The ice shattered in a burst of white light, and everything went dark. Darkness didn't feel empty. It felt alive, breathing, pulsing, whispering through the blood in my ears like it knew my name better than I did. When I woke, my body was heavy, my breath shallow. The scent of pine and smoke filled the air. I wasn't in the forest anymore. I was in a room lit by amber light and flickering shadows, the walls carved from stone, the air faintly humming with old power. And Rowan was there, sitting beside the bed, head bowed, his hand resting near mine but not touching it. As if afraid that one brush of skin would shatter what he'd managed to save. He looked exhausted. His dark hair hung loose, his knuckles bruised, his eyes rimmed red from something older than sleeplessness. When I tried to sit up, the blanket slipped from my shoulder. He lifted his head instantly. You're awake, he said softly. Barely. My voice cracked. Where are we? My home, he said. The part the world forgot. I blinked. You live under the mountain? He gave a small, tired smile. Safer here than anywhere else. The storm can't reach this far. What happened? I asked, remembering the blue light, the woman made of frost, the way the world had split open. I thought, she tried to take you, Rowan said, his voice tightening. The curse found its next offering. But you fought it. You called my name even when you couldn't breathe. I don't remember. I do. Some. Anything in the way he said it made my heart ache. I wanted to thank him, to ask how he'd saved me, but the air between us thickened, heavy with words neither of us could yet say. Then I saw it, the faint burn along his arm, glowing through his sleeve. Rowan, you're hurt. He followed my gaze and pulled his sleeve down, too late. The veins beneath his skin pulsed faint gold, fading in and out like dying light. It's nothing, he said. It's not nothing, I snapped. That light, it's the same as before, when you fought her. He didn't answer. He stood, pacing toward the far wall where a set of carved runes glimmered faintly. The movement wasn't a limp anymore, it was something else. Controlled. Calculated. I sat up fully, clutching the blanket around me. You said she cursed you to feel nothing. But I think that's not all, is it? He turned slightly, his shadow stretching across the room. You always were sharper than I hoped. Tell me the truth, Rowan. All of it. He hesitated, then exhaled, a sound closer to surrender than relief. The curse didn't just take my heart. It took my wolf. My breath caught. Your wolf? The other half of me. The part that led the pack, protected it. He looked up, eyes hollowed by memory. When Ceres cursed me, she bound my wolf beneath the ice, sealed him away so that I could never shift again. Never command, never love. I was meant to die in silence. But you didn't. No, he said, voice low. I lived. And because I lived, the storm followed me. It carries her voice, her hunger. When it comes for what I still have left. Me, I said quietly. His eyes met mine. Yes. The truth sat between us like a heartbeat too loud to ignore. He came closer, kneeling by the bed, his hand hovering near my cheek but stopping just shy of touch. You changed the curse when you fought her. I can feel it. Feel what? My wolf, he whispered. It's waking up. Before I could answer, the runes on the wall pulsed brighter, one, then another, like eyes opening. A tremor passed through the room, faint but unmistakable. Rowan rose instantly, muscles coiled. She's found the cave. Ceres? No. His expression darkened. Ronan. I pushed the blanket aside, ignoring the chill that ran through me. You said he wouldn't stop. He's her anchor, Rowan said. Her way back into the living world. Then we have to run, he shook his head. No. Running won't save us this time. He crossed to the far wall, pressing his palm against the glowing runes. They shifted under his touch, rearranging like liquid light until a small alcove appeared, filled with weapons that looked too ancient to belong to any one age. He took a dagger from the rack and handed it to me. Its blade shimmered faintly, etched with the same symbols. That had burned through the walls. Take it, he said. It's silver, pure, blessed before the blood moon. It'll kill anything that shouldn't walk this world. You won't have to, he said quickly. Just hold it. It will know what to do. The ground trembled again, harder this time. Dust fell from the ceiling. Somewhere above, a roar split the air, half human, half beast. I gripped the dagger tight. He's here. Rowan nodded once. Stay behind me. We climbed the narrow steps that led up to the outer tunnel. The closer we got to the surface, the colder the air became, each breath slicing deeper into my chest. When we emerged, the world had turned white again. The storm was back, and standing in its heart was Ronan. His eyes burned red now, not gold. His hands crackled with frost, and at his side stood Ceres, her body whole again, shimmering like crystal under moonlight. Brother, Ronan called, his voice carrying through the blizzard. You hide well, but you forget, I was born of the same blood. Your walls mean nothing to me. Rowan stepped forward, shoulders squared. You should have stayed dead with her. She promised me a kingdom, Ronan sneered. And I promised her your heart. Ceres tilted her head, smiling faintly. And the bride's warmth to thaw it. I stepped beside Rowan before he could stop me. You'll have to go through both of us first. Ceres's gaze flicked to me, curious, almost amused. Ah, the little flame. She raised her hand, and the snow around us froze mid-air, hanging like shards of glass. Let's see how bright you burn. The shards launched forward. Rowan moved faster than sight. His cane hit the ground, releasing a pulse that shattered the ice mid-flight. He turned to me, his voice a command and a plea all at once. Lena, if I lose control, you run. I shook my head. Not again. He gritted his teeth. Then pray. The air rippled. The mark on his arm flared gold, spreading like wildfire through his veins. His breath caught, his body trembling, and then the sound came. A growl, deep and resonant, rising from somewhere that wasn't human. The gold light exploded around him. His form shifted, breaking and rebuilding in flashes of fur, claws, light. In seconds, where Rowan had stood, a massive wolf loomed, silver and black, eyes blazing molten gold. The Alpha had returned. The sight stole my breath. Power rolled off him like heat, bending the storm itself. Ronan stumbled back, eyes wide. Impossible, she froze that beast. Rowan's wolf bared its teeth, and the sound that left him wasn't a snarl. It was a promise. He lunged. Ronan's frost met Rowan's fire. Ice shattered. Snow lifted in whirlwinds. Saris screamed, her voice echoing like broken glass as her hold on the world began to unravel. I stood in the storm's eye, clutching the silver dagger, heart-hammering. I could feel it, the bond between Rowan and me, blazing like a thread of molten gold through the dark. Every heartbeat he took, I felt in my own chest. Every wound he gave or received, I saw reflected in the light beneath my skin. And through the chaos, one truth burned clear as the moon. The curse wasn't meant to destroy him. It was meant to test me. Because love, in a world of wolves and gods, was the only power cruel enough to challenge death itself. The storm wasn't just wind anymore. It was alive, breathing, screaming, clawing through the valley like 1,000 ghosts trying to climb out of the snow. Rowan's wolf tore through the blizzard like a blade of light. Silver fur, gold eyes, every movement precise and deadly. The ground cracked beneath his paws. Every step he took sent waves through the snow, turning frost into steam. Ronan met him head-on. His body had twisted into something half-man, half-beast, wrapped in black ice. His claws gleamed like broken swords, his mouth full of teeth and rage. The two collided with a sound that didn't belong to this world, metal, thunder, and something primal. Snow exploded outward. The forest bent under the pressure. I stumbled back, shielding my face from the blast of power. The silver dagger in my hand vibrated, hungry for purpose. The mark on my wrist glowed bright enough to bleed through my sleeve. And then, through the chaos, I heard her. Saris. She stood beyond the battle, untouched by wind or snow, her eyes fixed on me. Frost crept outward from her bare feet, turning the world to glass as she walked. "Come here, little flame," she called softly. "You don't belong in his war." "I'm already part of it," I said, my voice shaking. Her lips curved into something that might have been pity. "He's using you. He always does. That's what the bond is for, to burn one life to keep another warm." I tightened my grip on the dagger. "If that were true, you wouldn't be afraid of me." Her smile flickered. "Afraid?" "Yes," I said, "because I'm what you never were, someone he didn't have to save." For the first time, her composure cracked. The air around her went wild, shards of frost spinning like knives. "You think love will save him? Love kills kings, girl." I stepped forward. The bond pulsed, gold lines spreading up my arm like veins of fire. "Then let it kill the right one this time." Saris hissed, and the world broke open. The ground split, blue light spilling upward, swallowing her form. She raised her hands, chanting words I couldn't understand. The sky darkened. The moon itself seemed to bow to her rage. Rowan and Ronan slammed into a fallen pine, splintering it to dust. Blood streaked the snow, dark and steaming. Ronan's claws raked across Rowan's shoulder, tearing fur and flesh. Rowan roared, the sound shaking the trees. "Rowan!" I screamed, the bond flaring in response. He turned his golden eyes toward me, and in that moment, I saw both man and beast inside him, warring, merging, choosing. Then the bond shifted. I felt it in my chest like lightning trapped in bone. My pulse matched his. My breath synced to his growl. I wasn't just watching the fight, I was inside it. Every movement, every impact, every ache. Saris screamed something into the sky, her voice twisting the air. Ronan rose to his feet, eyes glowing red, frost pouring off him. He lunged again. Rowan met him midair. Claws clashed. Teeth tore. Blood painted the snow in streaks of gold and crimson. "Enough," Saris cried. "End him." Ronan's claws found Rowan's side, deep and fast. Rowan staggered, falling to one knee. His wolf form flickered, fading, bleeding back toward human shape. I ran. "Lena," he shouted, but it was too late. I was already between them. Ronan raised his arm for the final strike. I thrust the dagger upward, both hands tight on the hilt. The blade sank into his chest. The sound he made wasn't human. It was pain mixed with disbelief, fury tangled with regret. Ice cracked across his body, racing from the wound outward until he was nothing but a frozen statue, his face twisted in rage that would never thaw. The dagger burned white-hot, then shattered in my hands. I fell to my knees, gasping. Saris screamed. Not anger, loss. The storm convulsed. Snow lifted into the air, suspended mid-fall. Rowan, half-shifted, stumbled toward me. His hands cupped my face, trembling. "Lena, look at me." "I'm fine," I whispered, though I wasn't sure I was. "It's over." His eyes said otherwise. "No, she's still here." Behind him, Saris stood with her arms raised. Her body cracked, light spilling from within. "If I can't have you," she said, "then neither will she." The light burst outward, cold, searing, endless. Rowan moved faster than thought. He pulled me against him, wrapping his arms around my body, shielding me. The light hit. For a heartbeat, everything vanished, the snow, the sound, even pain. There was only warmth. Rowan's warmth. When the world came back, the storm was gone. The sky was clear, blue, alive again. Saris was nothing but frost melting on the ground. And Rowan lay still beside me. I turned him over, my shaking hands brushing his face. His eyes were closed, his lips pale. The mark on his chest, where the curse had once burned, was fading. "No," I whispered. "Rowan, please, no." The bond pulsed weakly beneath my skin. I pressed my hand to his heart, tears spilling down my cheeks. "You said you'd find me," I sobbed. "You said I'd never freeze alone." The silence stretched. Then, a single breath. His chest rose. His eyes opened, gold again, alive again. "Did I keep my promise?" he asked weakly. I laughed through tears. "You idiot, you broke it just to remake it." He smiled, faint but real. "Then it was worth it." I leaned forward, pressing my forehead to his. The bond between us steadied, no longer blazing, but warm. Constant. Real. For the first time since the night we met, the world was still. No curses. No storms. Just two hearts learning how to beat again. When morning came, it didn't feel real. The sky was too blue, too calm, like the world was holding its breath after screaming all night. The snow that had once been cruel and sharp now glittered in soft light, melting in slow rivulets down the stones of the ruined mountain pass. I sat beside Rowan, our backs against a broken tree, the air between us filled with the scent of thawing pine and smoke. His hand rested over mine, steady, warm, alive. Alive. The word still felt like a miracle. He hadn't said much since waking. The fight had drained him, left his voice rough and his eyes dim with exhaustion. But every so often, he'd glance at me, as if checking that I was still real, that I hadn't vanished back into the blizzard that had tried to erase us. Finally, I broke the silence. "What happens now?" He didn't answer right away. His gaze drifted toward the horizon where the last of the storm clouds dissolved. "Now," he said softly, "the world begins again." "The curse?" I asked. "Gone," he said, voice thick with disbelief. "I can feel it. The silence in my blood is gone." "In your wolf?" A faint, tired smile curved his lips. "Resting, watching, grateful." I let out a shaky breath, staring at the faint glow of sunlight breaking through the trees. "We should go. There might be survivors from your pack, or..." He shook his head gently. "Not pack. Not anymore. They'll come when they feel the storm end. They'll know the Alpha lives. Then you'll rebuild," I said. "You'll be king again." He looked at me then, his eyes softening in that way that made my heart stutter. I was never meant to rule alone. The meaning in his tone stole my breath. "Rowan," he turned toward me fully. "I don't want a throne built on fear or frost. I want a home. And if that home starts with one heartbeat beside mine, that's enough." I couldn't look away. The air between us felt fragile, sacred. "You think I could build a home here? After everything?" He reached up, brushing his thumb against the side of my face, tracing the faint scar the ice had left. "You already have. The moment you refused to run." I wanted to argue, to tell him I wasn't brave, that I was just a girl who kept walking because stopping meant freezing, but his eyes said he already knew all of that. "And loved me in why way?" A soft howl echoed from somewhere in the valley below, clear, mournful, reverent. Another answered it, then another. The pack. They were calling to their alpha. Rowan stood slowly, offering me his hand. His cane lay discarded in the snow, he didn't seem to need it anymore. The strength in him had returned, not the cold kind born from duty, but something alive and warm and ancient. He pulled me up gently. "Come," he said. "They'll want to see the one who ended the storm." I laughed softly. "They'll see a girl who nearly froze to death and stabbed their prince. They'll see the Luna who taught the moon to rise again," he murmured. My heart skipped. "Luna?" His smile deepened. "You think the bond would stop with survival?" "No, little flame. It chose long before we did." I should have been afraid of what that meant, of the weight behind the word Luna. But all I felt was peace. We walked together through the snow, our footprints side by side, the sun climbing higher with every step. The forest that had once felt like a cage now opened before us, alive with birdsong and the drip of melting frost. When we reached the ridge, the pack waited below, wolves of silver, brown, white, all bowing their heads as Rowan approached. And when they looked at me, they didn't snarl or question. They bowed too. Rowan turned toward me, the gold in his eyes reflecting the morning light. "They bow because you remind them what it means to hope." "I didn't do anything," I whispered. "You loved," he said simply. "That's everything." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The wind moved gently through the pines, carrying away the last traces of winter. Rowan reached for my hand, threading his fingers through mine. "Stay," he said quietly. "Not because the bond says so. Because you want to." I smiled, tears pricking my eyes. "I think I've wanted to since the night you found me in the snow." He leaned down, pressing his forehead to mine. "Then let the world witness it." The sun broke through the clouds fully, spilling gold across the mountains, across us. And in that light, I felt the bond settle, not as a chain, but as something freer, older, infinite. The storm was gone. The curse was broken. And the man who once ruled the frost now ruled something far stronger, a heart that had chosen him, not out of fear, but out of faith. As the pack howled in chorus beneath the rising sun, Rowan pulled me close, his voice a low whisper against my ear. "Welcome home, my Luna." "Whose word is it, then?" I asked. His smile was small and strange and real. "Mine." The door opened. The night leaned in. And we stepped together into a story that had teeth and a heartbeat.